Well, when Ty kills the music, that means that it's time to get rocking and rolling, pun intended. Welcome to this week's Lunch and Learn. I am Dan Scott, the voice of the Paladins, and we are very happy to have you with us as we are every week this month. Our Lunch and Learn sessions are being brought to you by our friends at Sharon View Federal Credit Union. So we thank them for stepping to the plate, and we thank all of you for being here. The next 2 weeks, just to kind of look ahead to the schedule, we're going to go into the world of football, or as we call it here in the States, soccer. We'll have Andrew Burr of the women's soccer program next week, and then the following Tuesday, the last Tuesday of this month, it'll be Doug Allison and the men's soccer program. And I don't know yet exactly who Andrew has set for his special guest, but I do know that for Doug's on 2 weeks from today, it'll be McNeil Cronin. We can't have the Quinn game this fall, but we're going to talk about Quinn, that beautiful little princess, and how the program has adopted her and does so many great things for awareness for children with Down syndrome. So that'll be coming up in 2 weeks. McNeil Cronin will be the special guest with Doug Allison. We're really excited to have Robert and Rita Gary as our guests this week. You don't often have a husband and wife team who are kind of tag teaming a program, or dual programs, I suppose, at a major university, but we're blessed to have that situation here. They are with us today. We are going to open it up for questions from you, as we always do. You can submit them to me privately in the chat, or you can submit them to Ty and he will get them to me. And we have a poll question, we have a trivia question, and I think we're even going to play a little newlywed game with Robert and Rita before it's all over. Rita's shaking her head no, Robert is shaking his head yes. How are you guys today?
Perfect. That's exactly what you're getting for the whole show.
Yeah, right. I'll say whatever you want me to say, dear. That's you. Happy wife, happy life, right, Robert?
Yes, sir.
Nobody got that message here.
How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're excited to be here. I have to say, it's fun to scroll through all these faces. I see so many alumni. Hi, Quentin. Hi to our neighbors. It's just, I'm so thankful to see these faces. We're starved for you people. We miss you.
Robert, as for everyone on campus this fall, it's been strange. Obviously, not having the kind of direct access and the level of competition going on you normally do. How have you handled it?
Well, I think even throughout the summer and the quarantine, as things kind of became unveiled as we, went along, I thought the team and the program did a great job. We really drove home, two important things. One, don't be, affected by unreality. So let's not respond to every rumor that you hear or anything else. And thought we did a good job with that. And then probably even more importantly, as things, become set in stone, let's make sure we're the first and the best to pivot. So whatever goals are, can be put on our horizon right away, whether that's time trials, obviously academics, we want to get up and get started right away, particularly with, a really young team, particularly on the women's side. So I thought we've done a really good job. And, I think culture actually, in an odd kind of way, is at an all-time high for the program. So I'm really excited about where we are.
Athletes and coaches thrive on competition, and you haven't had that in-person competition for the most part. So how have you been able to feed that need? I'll ask both of you. I'll start with you, Rita. How have you been able to feed that need for competition?
Well, I think we are lucky enough to have a really specific niche in the track and field and cross country world. So we really pride ourselves on being a distance strong program, and that kind of connection between all of our athletes allows us to create some inter squad competition. We've had a couple of time trials already this season. We've got actually another one coming up this Saturday on campus, and it was just revealed last week that we are going to be the only sport in the Southern Conference that has a championship this fall. So we actually will compete for a conference championship on November 21st, the day after Furman's classes end. And I can't tell you how excited we are to try to bring our 8th straight conference title back to Greenville. I'd be lying if I didn't say it scares me to, usually we're like, just get them to the line and get them healthy and let them go. And now that keep them healthy thing has a whole nother layer to it. So I'm impressed with our kids. They have stayed incredibly committed to the processes of, that Furman's laid out in terms of keeping not just ourselves safe, but our community safe. And I think if we can stay with those guidelines and stay really intentional with our behavior, we're going to light up on November 21st, ready to defend yet again.
Robert is having that carrot dangling now. The championships, has that increased motivation? Has it increased focus among your runners?
Yeah, I think, obviously we're pretty, a goal-oriented program like most intercollegiate, sports. When they get together, they want something to build to crescendo towards. I do think along the way, we've really posed some good challenges as far as training goes. We're uninterrupted, as far as traveling to this meet, having to return from it. We can only run so many people. It's kind of nice. The whole program's in it together. So whether that's, let's get everyone's long run up and try to have 8 to 10 weeks in a row, uninterrupted, really consistent training. Let's also maybe tackle a little bit more academically than we sometimes can. It's very seldom that we're not in season. With cross, indoor and outdoor track, our kids are expected to kind of be in season year round. So, I know we have some kids that have kind of loaded up or maybe taken a stronger course load, and we've really challenged them. Let's see if we can even have a higher GPA than we had last spring, which was one of the highest we've ever had, in the history of the program. I think the only missing kind of benchmark for our program is really just community service. We're somewhat limited, although we're still trying to come up with some creative ways to kind of give back to the community, or certainly on campus. So, there's always goals to go towards. It's just getting everybody kind of mobilized and, kind of pointed in the right direction. And I think the kids have done a tremendous job, in that regard.
Yeah, I don't ask this totally tongue-in-cheek, because there's obviously some truth to it, but your sport, and focusing specifically on cross country, is one that you can go about your training and maintain social distancing, right?
Yeah, we felt really fortunate, even back in March when everything shut down. We were at the national championships for the indoor track and field season when, the world shut down. So we literally got taken off the track at the national championships and sent home on a plane. And it really was tough to see a lot of athletes lose that opportunity and to have their healthy outlet taken away from them. We are very fortunate that our healthy outlet is put on your sneakers and head out the door. Certainly there's a little more finesse to it than just one step. But to have that outlet, to have that opportunity to have, as he said, that uninterrupted training. And it's really, honestly, like, it brought the team closer together in a lot of ways. I think we all take for granted some of that interaction that we have every day. It's just like, this person's gonna be at practice, or they're gonna be at training. We had to be much more intentional about it, reaching out to our teammates, asking them how they're doing, sharing how we're doing, getting on Zoom calls like this with our team every other week for 6 months. So it made you appreciate that. I even, Zoomed with some of our seniors that graduated last year just because I miss seeing their darn faces. And I was like, get on the computer, I want to see your face. So just being intentional, but yeah, we're fortunate to be runners. Running is a sport that you can take with you for the rest of your life. It's one of the reasons why I think we enjoy coaching it so much, is it's a lifelong hobby, if you will, and it ebbs and flows. Today it was not a flow for me. Today I ebbed when I ran. But it's nice to be able to get out there and just have some sense of normalcy.
Well, again, you can send your questions in the chat to me privately, or to Ty Osborne privately, and he'll forward those along to me. Let's go ahead and reveal our poll question. We'll get to the trivia question a little bit later on, but here's the poll question. Normally, I do the poll questions. I just want to state up front, I had nothing to do with this one, okay? I don't want to get involved in any kind of marital strife that may result from the answers on this one. But who would win a race? Robert Gary, Rita Gary, or Secretariat? That's our poll, sponsored by Christopher Trucks.
I have some results I'd like to share when the time is appropriate.
Okay, yeah, I figured you probably would, and I can see we already have an early leader in the proverbial clubhouse. So we'll re-engage with that poll coming up again in just a little bit. All right, first question is for Rita. Don wants to know how you and Robert met.
Actually, we met in track and field. The beauty of our sport is that you spend sometimes 72 hours at a track meet. And he just couldn't help but notice yours truly. So I was coaching at Michigan State University and he was at Ohio State University, and met while we were both coaches at the Big Ten. And to be here at Furman and to be able to take our combined expertise and work alongside someone that, I respected first as a colleague, and now I sort of respect him. No, I was joking. It's been a real blessing for our family, and we've just enjoyed, being at Furman. But I think he's got pretty eyes. You can't see him, but he's got pretty eyes. It's hard not to notice him at a track meet.
Robert, do I need to, on occasion, give you a few minutes for rebuttal after Rita's answers?
No. I think most people would agree that Rita far outkicked her coverage when it came to us going forward. So,
yeah, you'll pay for that later, pal. Next question. For those of us who aren't strong runners but would like to get into 5Ks or maybe half marathons, any suggestions in regards to training?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like anything in life. Sometimes you just got to get started. I do have to say, Furman has an unbelievable resource here on campus headed up by Dr. Murr and the former Dr. Pierce. It's the First Institute, and it's all a couch to 5K type of training program. Just getting your butt out and moving your body and learning how to put 2 minutes of running into a 4-minute running, and then a mile into 2 miles, and it really does take you step by step. So I would give a shout out to that program. It's the First Institute. And I think with anything, start small, think big. That's one of our themes here at Furman. Sometimes it's getting out. Can you jog a minute and then walk a minute and jog another minute and walk another minute? And eventually you start to put those pieces together. But I'll always give a shout out to the minds here at Furman. There are some incredible people that work here, and they can kind of give you the specific puzzle pieces. But if you're looking for motivation, I would say keep following our program. We've got some really incredible young people that blow our minds on a daily basis. And they're really great about sharing the good parts of that process and some of the struggles that they have. And I think that's very relatable to anyone that's trying to do something new.
All right, good stuff. Robert, for someone in high school, the way this question was framed, their grandson is just starting cross country for the first time as a freshman. We're taking into account course and conditions. Is there a specific target time that would get a young runner noticed by a college coach?
I guess on the men's side, we probably use 16 flat, as a good threshold for a junior, to keep into account. Everybody's got a story. I think there's all different levels for kids to look at. Don't be enamored always by a huge Power 5 versus a small school. There's all different levels of Division I. There's tremendous Division III programs that can beat a lot of Division I programs. I just think, as getting out and marketing yourself and really kind of playing a role in the recruiting process, I think is a lot. I know we're really, put on, or, accelerates recruiting when we really get a feeling that a kid's really excited about everything that Furman has to offer, the social conditions, academics, obviously, if there's someone, whatever their major might be, they got to be a pretty good student, obviously. And then, running's always a thing. We're a pretty cut and dry sport, but there is a lot of, a good bit of subjectivity. I can tell you as someone, I didn't even run cross country in high school. So, people come to the sport from all different, walks of life or whatever. And, it's a lot of good soccer players out there that can kind of make the transition. And we have a pretty big, chasm of, skill of people who kind of arrive here from, in their freshman year. We have some kids that are trying to be All-Americans. We have some other ones that are really trying to just make the travel team. And I think we try to provide kind of steps all the way up and forward. So, I think as soon as you might be interested, I think reaching out and making sure recruiting is a real two-way process is, the best thing that I can probably, recommend.
All right. Thank you for the answer. Next question is about how redshirting is working in the pandemic era, specifically for your sport. Why don't you go ahead and tackle that one?
You go.
Well, Furman's pretty unique in that, number one, kind of demographic of, cross country, generally pretty good students or whatever. So sometimes kids come in with AP credits. I would say Furman is as good as any institution in the country at getting kids through in 4 years, not just kind of the cost, but also, real targeted measure, great advising, really keeps you on a good track. You're talking to a state school product that had about 17 different majors when I was in college. So I think Furman does a little bit better job of really kind of tracking you forward and making you go. One really nice thing that Furman's done that I hope everybody on the call takes great pride if you're a fan of Furman is their immediate assurance that anyone who wanted to come back for a 5th year and even a 6th year would be allowed to do so. You're seeing a lot of huge Power 5 programs with, frankly, athletic budgets that dwarf ours that simply, wouldn't allow it or didn't want to deal with it or anything. I can tell you that the call from the meet that Rita referenced earlier from the NCAA Indoor Championships back to our athletic director took all but a minute and a half to make sure to assure them that if they wanted to come back and use that existing eligibility, they'd be allowed to do so. So we more, instead of redshirting all freshmen or anything like that, we really like to try to get people into the program, competing. It's the best part about, your freshman year in college, particularly if you're good enough, don't risk being injured and miss out on a season of it. We try to offer kids 4 years of going to the NCAA championships, 4 years of being SoCon team champions. And even if you're not the most instrumental person on the team or the highest scorer, there's great value in being on the bus, being used to, your season going a little bit longer into the year and everything else. So we really kind of make that decision come, 2nd, 3rd, 4th year. We got to look at academic things. We do have kids who leave with double majors, and the like. We've had the occasional, grad student, if it ever works out, Furman doesn't have a lot, but there are plans to kind of have more. So we just kind of take that as it rolls or whatever. But instead of, we really do it expecting that person is really going to be something special. It's not just, let's just kill a year to not accomplish anything. We're also very supportive of the Furman advantage. I think there's very few Division I programs in the country that are top 20 in the country in cross country that would let their very best runners go and study abroad. We really encourage it. It's part of our recruiting process. I can't think of we look for unique things in recruiting all the time, and that's just another one. So some of our very best athletes, about 75% of our kids, I would say, have already gone and study abroad, not the incoming freshmen, but beyond that. So we really try to create that. If it's not study abroad, then it's some paid internship, which is part of the reason why Furman's such a special place. You leave here ready to take on a real job. You have those skills, you've had real experience. And I think that's something that we really sell in recruiting and want to make sure we deliver on.
Robert, thank you for that answer. Incidentally, we have passed the 300 mark and number of folks on this Zoom call. So give yourself a virtual round of applause. So we really appreciate all of our fans and the folks inside the athletic department joining us and helping make these things a success. Staying with kind of the COVID theme, Rita, talk about the process of trying to recruit in this area when athletes can't come in and you can't go out.
Yeah. You know what? When this first happened and there was like the never ending NCAA dead period that just kept being rolled out like month after month, I think we were all a little bit worried at first, but much like anything in life, I think when you look at you've been told what you can't do, you have to figure out a different way to attack it. And the last few months, not being able to visit kids in person, not being able to welcome them to campus in person has just forced us to be a lot more in depth with the recruits we already had in place, like looking beyond the numbers. They couldn't race, so we didn't have their race data to compare, but we could figure out what kind of a leader they were. We could figure out how they responded to these times. We could figure out what opportunities they were willing to make for themselves versus having it be made for them. I mean, this is a sport where you can run a mile as hard as you want and figure out how you're doing. So I felt like we really actually saw more information about our recruits, or maybe just different information about our recruits. And I couldn't be more excited than some of the girls and young men that have already committed to our class of 2021. Some of them sight unseen on campus. And it was just because we stayed so on the gas with not these superfluous surface level conversations, but actually like getting down into the weeds with them. And how are we doing with these challenges? And how are we going to come out of this? Like, someone's getting better during this time, right? Why wouldn't it be us, or why wouldn't it be you? The lights will come back on. And as Robert said, we want to be one of the first ones to take advantage of that. And I think that's just what we looked for in our recruits as well. So as weird as it is, I couldn't be more excited than I am about this class of 2021. And there's a couple more that I hope will be joining us. But it's been cool to see these kids are so much more resilient than we are. They're so much better at just rolling with it. So that was the fun part.
This is for both of you. We'll start with Robert. What coaches maybe inside your sport or more even outside your sport do you admire or seek to emulate?
Geez, well, certainly inside the sport, there's a famous Australian distance coach who my son's named after, and our dog as well. And really, I really looked up to him just because he was so good at kind of looking off the beaten path. He was doing things that are really ahead of his time, real revolutionary. Loved the training camps that he did. Not everything was on a track with a watch. He was running up sand dunes and those types of things. There's a nice thing out on Netflix too, Playbook or something. And it's 5 coaches. And so I've really started to get into kind of coaches of other sports too. So there's some real famous ones and just some of the things that they're concerned about, things that have gone. To go back to the question for Rita, we've really, during this COVID thing, we've had more time than ever to kind of recalibrate ourselves. What can we do better? What can we do differently? What were we doing before that was somewhat of a waste of time or a waste of money or not really effective? And so I think our program does a really good job, and I love our staff in regard of, always trying to look at a different meet schedule, different training programs. I see a lot of alums on here from 7 or 8 years ago. I think when they come onto campus, I think they would see now today the same kind of goals still exist, the same kind of challenge, the same kind of pushing, but they'd see different kinds of workouts, how we handle lifting, how we might do circuits, how we might divide up the team or whatever, not necessarily in a COVID separation, but how we kind of try to form groups and join, kind of lay out a calendar, different meets that we want to go to. I don't want kids going to the exact same meet every year. I want them seeing different parts of the country, when they get, good enough, we have ability to go and do it. And, some of those things I think are really good to kind of keep recalibrating yourself and going, not just as your program gets better, but as you get better and better, as you become a better coach. I think every year, we try to really reevaluate ourselves. Obviously, you discard the bad stuff, and obviously you hang your hat on the things that have worked really well. You have basic philosophies, but the execution of some of the specifics, your kids change every year. We have different teams. We had a lot of very, very talented older women, they graduate. We got this great recruiting class in, we got another couple ones coming in. It's a younger class. We got to reevaluate. We got to see where we are. Might not be able to push as hard in some areas, but we also know where it can lead too. So, it's just nice to always get recalibrated. And I think that's one good thing about, I guess, COVID. So, and always look at other sports and everything to kind of see what they're doing. A lot of times that's our peers. We just left a head coaches meeting where a lot of coaches had wonderful ideas on what they're doing while not having a season, and I'm excited to share it with our staff. So,
Rita, coaches that you admire or emulate?
You would think I would talk about another cross country coach. The reality is I've been lucky enough to have some really strong female coaches in all stages of my time as an athlete. Deanne Scanlon was my high school volleyball coach, and I still remember her walking in, and she was the varsity coach. She was a big star. She was 6 foot, black hair, heavy eye makeup, red lips. She was hard to miss. And she has now gone on to win multiple national titles at Grand Valley State University as a volleyball coach there. But she just impressed me with her sense of purpose, competitiveness, no frills, just get to business talk. And then I've actually had really wonderful female coaches. When I was an athlete, Kelly Phillips, she might be on this call now. She is the Florida State cross country coach. And I just have always had wonderful female mentors, whether they knew they were mentoring me or not. I just paid attention to how they carried themselves. A lot of them were working moms. So I saw that balance head on. And, when I was 17 years old, I didn't know that lesson would be important. But here I sit at 42 with a kid that calls me mom and a team that calls me coach, and I got to figure out how those two worlds collide together sometimes. So just lucky enough to have a lot of really great women mentors around me. And I've gotten a lot closer with some of my peers in the profession in these last 6 months. Andrea McDonough from Toledo, Jill Miller from Northwestern, Angela Reckart from Penn State. They've just been really cool to bounce ideas off, and all of them have had, successful programs. So I think my mentor group is primarily women, but I got enough of the male perspective right here.
It's funny, you mentioned that maybe she didn't realize she was mentoring you. Mm-hmm. Thinking back to when I was an impressionable high school athlete, I probably didn't realize I was being mentored, didn't realize the lessons I was learning until I got a little bit older. It's funny how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, and she would bring her 2 little kids. I remember their names were Jack and Megan. There was these adorable little people when I was, I guess 15, 14. And I still just remember paying attention to how she ran a really tough practice and how she focused us on a tournament that was coming up. And meanwhile, she had these 2 kids running around. And I just think a lot of women can relate to that kind of dynamic. And I want to be a reference point for you can do both. I don't do it perfectly, but I do think you can do both, and probably you can do 3 or 4 things, but I'm not that sweet. So I'm going to stick with my 2.
Robert, talk about the values that you try to instill in the culture of the program.
I think you're always, as a coach, try to, kind of go back and forth between, and they're not really separate things, but I think the whole idea of good treatment and care while also challenging. I think back to a lot of the coaches that I had, and people always say kids have changed so much nowadays in this generation, and I will say music has changed quite a bit, but I think everybody can probably relate to that. I'm an old man, but I think it's important to challenge. I think challenge is a privilege, and I think you got to do it with care. Obviously, you got to do it where you're kind of telling the truth. I think it's really, really important, but I think coaches always grapple with those 2 things. I think even as a coach, as an athlete myself, I've had, good successes, in my own personal running. But I try to find some stories on, when maybe I got really nervous, where I didn't take care of myself away from the track. I think when, the kids on the team see yourself as a little bit more humanized and not just walking around talking about all the great stuff that you've always done or the great kids that you've always done, but maybe showing kind of the growth that you've had personally, or some great, rags to riches stories of kids that you had on the team, a walk-on who might have come on that might have, labored for a year or 2, had a hard time staying eligible or anything else. I always like to joke that I made more Olympic teams than I did make spring break trips. At Ohio State, to make the spring break trip, you had to score in the conference meet, and I just couldn't do it until my last year. Go on. It just takes some people a little bit more time. So giving people time both ways while also challenging them, I think, is probably the biggest challenge for a coach, and also the biggest charge for the coach. But if you're willing to do it and the athlete's willing to do it, you can keep them kind of in the hopper, excited about what they're doing, providing some checkpoints for, kids along the way to get enough successes, then I think, you end up looking up and you got a lot of people that have jumped a lot of levels by the time they leave you. And that's really great culture, I think.
I love the comment about humanizing yourself to your team, because I have known coaches in the past who have had incredible success, and you mentioned that you're a 2-time Olympian, so that's about as high as you can go in your sport. And if that's all you portrayed to your athletes, then not only could it come across as being arrogant, but it could come across as being, if you don't attain what I did, you're a failure. And by humanizing yourself and letting them know the struggles that you had to get there, I think only makes your athletes respect you more and understand that there's more to it than just getting to the Olympics or getting to the Super Bowl or getting the corner office, whatever it is. There's a process that goes along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what's great about our sport too. I mean, there's all different levels, all different checkpoints. And if nothing else, you have the carrot out there of running faster than you ever have in your life. And I think that's just really great. I mean, we've even tried to, I think we've done a good job this fall of charging that out. We're still going to try to get ready on these specific dates, providing a little bit of a schedule, and getting ready to go on the right date there's a huge premium on that in our sport. Training consistently for an uninterrupted amount of time. You look up and you're a totally different, individual or whatever. You can't just do it for a week. And we don't have really this one secret workout, but if you start having 10 or 12 weeks, I think you really, it really helps you. And I think that's where you see some real inflection points for people.
Rita, Matt wants to know, what does it mean to be a part of the girl gang?
What does it mean to be part of the girl gang? It's funny how that kind of has taken on a life of its own, but I think it's just women working together. It's, there's plenty of studies out there that show that women tend to be a little bit harder on themselves and each other than they maybe are on their male counterparts. And learning how to get women to work together is one of the funnest challenges as a coach, and also one of the most frustrating challenges as a coach. But it's an idea of there's enough success for all of us. It's an idea that you take responsibility for the outcome. It's the idea that this is indeed an experiment of one, where if you're constantly comparing yourself to your teammate, that's only going to hold you back. It's the idea that it's okay to be scratchy and push each other. People usually don't like to be uncomfortable. I know we all like to be comfortable more times than not, but discomfort usually is the first step to some really important growth opportunities. There's a great saying that failure is the mother of success. So a girl gang is someone that's just willing to get in there, do the work, take responsibility for the outcome, bring their teammates along with them. And I would say, like, have fun. I think I'm fun. I think I'm a fun person. We have fun. I think it's good to laugh a little bit. It's good to have thick skin. But yeah, Girl Gang it's probably one of my favorite things that the women have created. I don't think I created it. I just sort of jumped on the bandwagon.
Awesome. And ironic that it was a man who asked the question about the Girl Gang.
That's because he just wants in.
That's right. Ty, let's go ahead and drop the trivia question now, since we're a little past the halfway point. The success of this program has been phenomenal, and Christopher Trucks brings us a trivia question today. How many top 30 finishes has Furman had at the NCAA championships in cross country? And there you see your options are 6, 7, 8, or 9. So we'll give you some time to vote on that, and we'll revisit that toward the end of the program as well. This is our weekly lunch and learn session presented by Sharon View Federal Credit Union for the month of October. I'm going to continue with some questions, and then you said I've got a whole list of newlywed game questions we're going to get to before it's over. So you guys get ready for that. Next question, and this is for both of you. I think it's Robert's turn. You both have maintained, obviously, a tremendous physical training regimen yourself, and maybe in some sports coaches don't do that. Is that typical in your sport, number one? And B, does it give you any kind of edge as far as recruiting and motivating your team?
Yeah, no, I think I put in my time, and I think when those pollsters are voting, I think they're voting for Rita's grit, versus my just pride. That's really all I have going for me at this point, as far as training goes. But I will say, and I know there's a lot of runners on here, when I work out an hour or 2 hours, anything it might be, whatever I'm doing, biking, anything, I feel much better. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I'm a better coach. When you get used to that, having that time, when you can think about things, that's when I think about a lot of stuff that I want to share with the team, staff notes, directions of the program, projects we want to take on and stuff. So I think it becomes, any kind of endurance athlete, I think you have time when you're by yourself. You don't have a phone on you. You don't have something going on. And I just feel a lot better. Rita always gets mad because I can literally run 3 days in a row and lose 10 pounds. And that's just kind of where I'm at. I can't really get that big. I also eat like a fifth grader. So I'm much more of the coaching of, do as I say, not as I do. Rita's much more of the representative worker of our family, for sure.
So Rita, does that mean you're smarter than a fifth grader?
I don't know. I'm teaching fifth grade right now, and it's really hard, Dan.
I meant that particular fifth grader sitting beside you.
Oh, yeah, no, we're done.
Jeff Foxworthy, I think, gets a little royalty for me asking that question. What about you and your training regimen? Do you feel like it helps you with your own athletes?
Yeah, it's an outlet. Actually, I remember when we first came down here to Furman 8 years ago, I could run with women, and actually I could probably keep up with them in workouts a lot of days. And then, interestingly enough, the year that we made it to the national championships, so that was 2017, and we were 7th as a program that year. That was the year I recognized that I couldn't even hang with them for like a minute. They were just so much better than me. So if I'm not getting my butt kicked by the team, we're probably not very good. And the good news is they are crushing me right now, every day. I don't think I could run with them for 1 minute. So we're pretty good. But as Robert said, it's just a good stress outlet. And I want to be a reference point for a healthy lifestyle, not just during college, but, taking care of your body afterwards. I can tell you as a mom, and learning to trust your body to do things that you didn't know it could do. It's just good to be healthy and good to take care of yourself. It makes the whole process of life a little more enjoyable.
Guys, we have seen Olympic sports all across the country at schools facing some serious financial issues. So the question submitted says, what does track and field / cross country need to do to help its cause?
I hope it's kind of continue on as is. I think we have a lot of really good draws. I think it's worth mentioning that way back when in 2005, we had an alum of this program who, wanted to give back and set up an endowment, which is not the sexiest thing for, most owners or whatever, but taking part in kind of a shared funding, and that endowment has really grown. with the university's great ability to invest and manage the monies and, stay disciplined with it, about half our program is, funded for scholarships. I think looking at some of that endowment things, and if you can get one started and you can get people excited about it, we've subsequently tried to add to it in the past. We've tried to have some shared funding models. It's certainly not tons of money, but we recruit a lot of activities, and a lot of those activities, all the profits do go towards, our program or whatever. And then obviously the university has to take on the real brunt of it. I mean, there's not many sports, even at the highest of levels in Division I, that it's a one-to-one, return on investment. Very few schools can really say that they, operate, at a zero cost. What they raise is what they spend. So it's, a university has to make the decision, do they value sports, and what, what does it bring to the university? There's a lot of offsuits. Certainly I'm someone who believes that it teaches life lessons, but we try to make sure that we bring a caliber of student here that is just as good as the regular student body. In fact, I think a lot of times our program is even slightly better, not only incoming academic profile, but when they get here. I think there's a real pursuit of excellence. I think Elizabeth Davis has said that a number of times. She really puts a premium on, she wants people really, going after a conference championship, having an NCAA representation. The vast majority of sports at Furman, if you win the conference, you get to compete at the NCAA level. And that stuff really is, it really is gold. I know it's not as big in the Olympic sports as it is to see Furman, beating Villanova or making a basketball tournament. But if we're all doing our part, we become this kind of small school that's found a way to fund itself without, kind of bankrupting the coffers or relying too much on tuition, based things. And I think Jason Donnelly, the current AD, has really kind of set all the head coaches on with this charge and doing something. But I would really be remiss if I didn't say the real forethought and the real vision, and the real credit in our particular sport for that endowment really would go to Chris and Andrea Bork, the Bork Foundation, and all the people that have given kind of along the way as they've gone. They really saw in the beginning that intercollegiate athletics may end up here. COVID probably accelerated or maybe put a spotlight on it, but I think he saw that there's going to come a point where it's going to be tough to kind of justify some of the expenditures and some of the things. And you really see it in schools much, much bigger than Furman, with probably more sound funding models, just as far as, 100,000 stadium, those types of things. They're really struggling right now. I mean, we have colleagues that they're really, running for their lives. And I'm really proud of the SoCon and Furman kind of hanging in there as long as possible last spring to try to have a season. They've really hustled to give us at least a cross country championship this fall. And by all accounts, we're going to have an entire spring, in the spring. It'll be smaller, it'll be somewhat diminished, but they really are making decisions based on, I think the health kind of first and those types of things before some of the money issues. I think, not perfect, obviously, but I think there's an attempt at least. And I think that's really refreshing and really exciting to be a part of.
Next question begins with a comment and says that they're so impressed with the dual gender nature of the program and how each program supports the other on a collective and individual level. How did you guys develop that kind of culture?
I'll take this. Well, for starters, it's important that the women's program is doing good in our house in general. So I don't want anyone to do it.
Selfish motivation.
Yeah. And understand that I am the director on an org chart. But the fact of the matter is, Coach Rita, Coach Roberts, they kind of gravitate a little bit more towards the women. Coach Neal and I a little bit more towards the men. But I can't tell you how exciting it is to kind of pitch and recruiting, and also, to be on it, coming back from the NCAA championships last year with both programs having, kind of overshot what their ranking was coming in. There's nothing better about a small school having a lot of people around, having both teams go in there. You combine our scores last fall, we're the 6th best program in the entire country, NCAA. That's not small school. That's everybody who participates in Division I cross country, sports. So a lot of times, people say we have a small roster, and we do. But a lot of times when we get to these end of the year meets, when we go to the regional NCAA championships, for example, we have as many qualifiers, in the distance areas. Oregon, Stanford, you're still training with training partners as you go. It's not just 1 or 2 distance runners. I grew up at a school that, we're Big Ten champs on the track, but we're basically just sprinters and jumpers. We didn't really have throwers. I was the occasional distance runner. We had 1 distance runner at a time. We have a whole crew going up to some of these, elite meets and having everybody go. And both programs really build on each other. The men kind of made nationals, a year or 2 before the women. I think mostly because, we had a little bit more scholarship money available and we're able to land a top 5 recruiting class. The women then kind of overshot, surpassed the men. They ended up finishing 7th. Now we got both programs kind of hovering around that 10 to 15. And the real charge and challenge and excitement is how can we move it now into the top 10 and even the top 5? One of our goals that we had when we first took this job that we talked about is how can we position this program to win a trophy? And that continues to be a driving force for us and something that we really want to try to go. And there's ebb and flow to it for sure. It's not just an up and down, trajectory or whatever, but we have these inflection recruiting classes. We have these inflection athletes that just sprout up. And, we've had some very special athletes here that they didn't arrive here thinking they were going to be runner-up at the NCAA championships in Ali Buhalski, 5th at the NCAA championships, 2nd American, Aaron Templeton. They had a good pedigree, but it wasn't that kind of pedigree. I think the recipe is really there, and we're real excited about always moving the program forward, inside kind of the, things that we need to do at Furman. And whether that means, scholarship money available, up, down, academic requirements shift slightly, those types of things. We just keep pushing on. We try to always say that we don't believe in circumstances. The mission always stays the same.
Rita, speaking of the recipe that Robert mentioned, the next question kind of feeds into that. What's the breakdown percentage-wise, this question says, between coaching technical skills and the emotional aspects in cross country?
What day are you wanting to talk about? No, there's a balance to that all the time. I mean, the beauty of our sport is you do control how fit you are when you step to the line, right? Like you do control your fitness, and the 6 to 8 weeks preceding a specific race, that's your time as a responsible athlete to get the pieces in place you do to make sure you have confidence when you're standing on the line. But that mental aspect, that's something that we always practice. In fact, we meet with our team once a week. Coach Roberts and I will meet with the women Thursday because we're on this call today. And we'll talk through what their race plan is for the 2-mile time trial this Saturday, and, what decisions they want to make, what kind of position they want to put themselves in. And I really will always encourage someone to fail. I grew up as a downhill skier in Michigan, and I remember my first ski instructor said, if you don't fall 3 times a day, you're not learning how to ski, you're learning how to stand on skis. And that has always stuck with me. It's good to fall down. So practice is a chance to fall down and then rebuild. Regular season races are a chance to fall down and then rebuild. Robert referenced Ali Buhalski. The year before she was 2nd in the national championships, she had been 2nd going into the last 600 and then got her butt kicked in the last 2 laps because she just went too early, too fast, and didn't have enough to finish the race. But we walked away from that national championship saying, all right, we got to find 600 more meters. Like, we've got to get that piece in place. Had she not done that as an athlete, I don't think I could have given her the skills as a coach. So the technical piece in our sport is huge. We don't show up and say, oh, hey, here's this ball, and if we kick it over here, if you throw it, what you have standing on the line physically is what you have standing on the line physically. There's no way around it. But how you maximize that with your decision making and your willingness to try, I think is really huge. I just encourage our athletes to bet on themselves. Why not you? Why couldn't you be the story today? Why couldn't you put yourself in this position and find success? Why wouldn't you try? And I would want them to have that same kind of self-confidence, whether they were stepping into their first interview or going to ask some guy out at the bar or whatever it was. I want them to have the confidence to say, well, this one could definitely be my story. This could be my success. But you got to be willing to work for it.
When you both were coming along as athletes, there was no such thing as social media. And you have embraced social media to help in the promotion of your program. How did that metamorphosis come about for you? Because like me, there was no social media coming along. So how'd that metamorphosis happen? How did you come to embrace it so well?
Well, actually, I'll kind of kick it back to a question that you posed earlier. Someone posed, like, how do we make sure Olympic sports are valued, right? Hey, you've got to connect to your community. You've got to connect to your recruits. You've got to connect to your parents. You've got to connect to your fans. You've got to connect to your sport. And what's awesome about social media is that you don't need a 50-person sports information department to get the job done. You just have to be consistent. I think you have to know your messaging. I was actually a communications major, my first major in college and I learned about public relations, like, hey, have the message you want to send and don't leave that messaging. You always have a chance to reinforce it. So social media for us is a chance to compete, and you beat them with energy, you beat them with ideas, and you beat them with consistency. So the other benefit is I love to think like a 17-year-old girl. So getting out there like, oh, this would be fun I would like to read this. I have the distinct ability to be incredibly immature on occasion. It's wonderful.
I'm just going to leave that one alone, and we're going to move on. Robert, your sport is in many ways a bit of a conundrum, because it's a team sport where individuals on your team compete against one another, but at the same time are also competing within the framework of the team. Talk about how that framework and that whole aspect of your sport works.
Well, yeah, it's certainly, I think most sports can kind of be, broken down such that if all the individuals are doing fantastic, if they're all healthy, if they're all getting better, then the team's going to obviously benefit. I think it's even more teamy, if you will, in that you're specifically contributing to the score. If you're short a guy or anything else, or if someone gets injured, we're talking a lot right now about we need every single person in our program to be ready to go just in case there's a COVID outbreak. If there's a tracing thing, we need to be healthy on November 21st, more healthy than we ever have in the history of, intercollegiate sports, really. And so some guys that might, consider themselves an 800 runner or a miler or something, I think they really have to be, everybody's on deck. And I like that amount. I like that accountability. I think some people really prefer to be the guy just outside, or maybe not a starter in another sport or something like that. I love that everybody feels like there's some kind of spotlight on them. And so we are all in it together, because then what really happens with the best kind of cultures is then, teammates take priority over friends. A teammate says, hey, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. A friend will always accommodate, a friend will always understand. A teammate will be, hey, we might need you. And as such, you got to get to bed early, you got to eat right, make sure you're getting your stretching in, those types of things. So like I mentioned, the culture, I think, is kind of at an all-time high. I think everybody's on deck, and we may very well, need everybody. When you start having that kind of thing and you start adding the men and the women together, and both programs really want to hit our first goal, the truth of the matter, as the year goes, nothing has changed for our program whatsoever. Our first goal every year is win the SoCon, and then we go from there. How we're going to qualify for nationals, we'll cross that when they announce it by the NC2A. So we're very big in this program of everybody always has to have a goal. I think that shepherds you mission wise, whether it's academically or athletically. That shepherds your kind of growth as a team, and it's very, very, very infectious both ways. If you got a bunch of Cracker Jacks running around that have no real direction of what they're doing other than occupying space and, surfing Twitter, then you don't have much of a program. But if people are on there with great pride in Twitter, they're sending Rita stuff to bring it back to the social media, because I had nothing to offer in the last statement at all. I'm 4 months removed away from my BlackBerry. I just think you can really create a lot of energy, people-wise.
All right. We've got 2 or 3 other questions that have been submitted. If we have time, we'll get to those, but I want to get to some other things. And Ty, let's go in reverse. Let's start with the trivia question first, because then I want the poll question response to lead us into the newlywed game. So the trivia question, we put that out to you, brought to you by Christopher Trucks. How many top 30 finishes has Furman had at the NCAA championships in cross country? Your choices were 6, 7, 8, and 9. And Robert, the correct answer is?
7.
Well, I hope so. That's what I was told. So.
Well, we were trying to remember if some of them came, before. Yeah, we just didn't know what the whole complete history, because our sport has changed a little bit with the NCAA. So since we got here, it's been 7, I think.
Okay, I was told 7, so that's what we're going with.
We're gonna go with 7.
So the gallery guessed 8, 37%. So
Y'all are sweet.
there you go. All right, so the poll question. Let's get to that. Also from Christopher Trucks, who would win a race?
Okay.
This is not even close.
No.
Not even close. Even Secretariat is a distant third in this.
The truth of the matter is, after I had our son and we were living in Columbus, I decided to sign up for the Columbus Marathon because mile 25 was our house. That's right where our house was. And so, like any good new mom, I guilted Robert into running the marathon with me. And then all of his athletes at Ohio State found out that it became a race naturally. And no one should be surprised that the woman who just gave birth kicked the Olympian's butt. She made him cry. I got there first, and all of his athletes were super excited. In fact, they ran the last mile with me because they wanted to make sure I was going to beat them.
Well, in my defense too, before everybody starts, heaping too much praise on Rita,
Give me the
I
praise.
got beat by a guy who was dressed like Fred Flintstone wearing Tevas as well. So it wasn't, the fastest time on earth, I think, as we go. I think also additionally, chivalry is not dead in our household. So you can take that for what it's worth, I think, as you go.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go down the did you let her win road.
No.
So we'll just go from there. Well, that leads us then, as I said, perfect segue, that's a radio term, into the newlywed game. So how we're going to do this? I guess you're just going to point at yourself or point at the other person. Okay? So I guess we've already answered the first question. Who's the faster runner? Okay, unanimous. It's Rita. Who asked the other out for the first date?
I think.
I
don't know.
Little disagreement there. No points. What's the story?
I think I asked him to marry me, but he may have asked me out first. So
Okay.
we'll just call it a split.
Okay. Well, that kind of leads to the next question. Who was the first to drop the big L?
Oh, that was him.
That was me.
Okay.
I do remember that.
No disagreement there. Who is the biggest?
You don't want to give him too much too soon. You gotta make him work a little bit.
I got you. I'm not gonna go any further. Who's the biggest grouch in the morning?
No, I get up super
Oh,
early. I get coffee going. I make coffee. Sometimes I take him coffee in bed.
but are you happy about it?
We're rolling. We got coffee going. We got practice at 6. I don't have time for grumpiness. It's time to get out the door. We're working.
Robert, rebuttal?
I mean,
No.
7 times in 11 years isn't coffee in
No,
bed
that's
with any
not
kind of
true.
regularity.
It's not true. No.
All right. Who's more likely to deal with a spider in the house?
Oh, Robert. Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. I'm not touching those things. It's creepy. They'll kill you.
Okay. Who's the better driver?
Me. That's true.
I don't enjoy driving, so Rita's our car driver. It's very embarrassing, especially when we show up at her parents' house after a 10-hour drive. And
Yeah.
she's the one who drove the whole way.
I'm driving Miss Daisy every time.
Who's messier?
Oh my God, Robert. I am so clean. If you walk into my house and it doesn't look like a Holiday Inn, there's a problem.
Robert, you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no one as clean as Rita.
No. You guys are
So,
nuts.
okay. Who's more competitive?
Who's more competitive? What?
Who's more competitive? Period.
It might be a draw.
I think Rita probably is up to a point. I think when I do get competitive, I am, but I don't get as competitive about as many things as she does.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
He picks
There's a switch that has to be flipped.
He chooses less battles. I choose all the battles.
Every battle.
Every single one.
Who's the better dresser?
Oh, Robert. Because he can go for 3 runs and lose 10 pounds. I'd be a great dresser if I could just go, whoop.
Rita does wear a shocking amount of colors all the time,
Yeah.
too. It is odd sometimes. I'm about gray and brown, and that's it, but she is very colorful.
Hey, you want people to see you coming.
They do.
Who's the better cook?
Oh my gosh. Robert has one thing he can cook. He can cook, and it's Prego red sauce, pasta, and then he gets whatever kind of like chemical infused bread that is super, super soft and puts butter and garlic, and then he calls it garlic bread. It's terrible. I'm not a great cook, but I am the only reason our son Percy has any vegetables in his life.
So you win by default, basically, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, the bar is real low.
Have we already answered kind of in a roundabout way who's in better shape?
I think Robert always is. I mean, he may say that there's a lot. You have to be a little bit of a physical freak to be an Olympian. I don't know what to tell you. Like, some of the things he can still do, it drives me nuts. He can just do it. It's frustrating.
Who's the better singer?
Oh my God, me.
Yeah.
All the time. Do you want me to sing right now? What song do you like?
Pick one.
I'm just joking. Well, you're going to have zero
Hey,
followers.
did you see Zooming In on yesterday with Tommy K? We got a live ukulele performance from
Well, I'm
Tommy
not
K
a
from the
good
soccer program.
singer, but I am a very passionate singer.
Okay.
Yeah. There are several neighbors I noticed on this call, and
They know.
and I know one or
They
two of
know.
them have called the police to our house
Yes.
about karaoke. So
Yes.
Rita doesn't have fun with this. She's trying to earn a recording contract when
Yes.
she karaoke's.
Like, in another life, I was amazing, and I'm just trying to find her. She's in there somewhere.
Final newlywed game question. And we may have already answered this one as well, but who's more likely to run out of gas?
Oh, Robert.
Yeah, that's me
Yeah.
for sure.
So when you do drive,
Yeah.
it's always an adventure, right?
Yeah. My dad owned a body shop growing up, so I was always the girl that got, like, the broken down cars that he put back together. Like, that's what I drove. So the idea of your car breaking and stalling out is a source of stress for me every time I'm in a car. So I have to have my car, like, pristine and ready to go, because I have been stranded on some country roads in Michigan, believe me.
Yeah, sometimes it's unbelievable what I can avoid on the home front, like what I can ignore completely and pretend like it's not even happening. So.
I worked with a guy doing baseball at another school some years ago, Robert, who his personal philosophy, because he was retired and his wife wasn't, that it was a sorry woman who couldn't take care of one good man. I'm not sure that's a great philosophy to live by if you want to maintain a happy marriage. I'm just telling you that was his philosophy. So we'll go from there. Guys, this has been fun. It really has. We really appreciate, again, everyone who's joined us on the call here. As we kind of wrap it up, just tell us where, I mean, this program has already achieved so much. Where can it go from here?
I mean, I think we're always going to go back to the process. And we've gotten better at refining the things that, you know, we learned 8 years ago. As Robert said, having someone like a Chris Bork who sees the potential at Furman, having the leadership from a Jason Donnelly and Elizabeth Davis to put us in a position to have the resources we need, having the expertise of our coaching staff, knowing what niche we're trying to really target, and then development. You know, a lot of programs will say recruiting is the lifeblood of their program. We think development is the lifeblood of our program. And, you know, that kind of mindset has certainly gotten us into the top 10 of the NCAA. And what's cool is that it's giving us those type of results, or giving us access to another class of recruits. So maybe we can start up a little bit further. Our goal is to be a podium team here at Furman. We want one of the smallest schools in the nation to bring home one of the biggest titles in the country. And we want to do it our way. I think that's one of the best things that we've learned to do at Furman, is not to try to be a lesser version of someone else's program, but to identify what truly makes us unique and special. And I think the combination of Furman academics, the running program that we have in place, the support that surrounds the entire athletic program, you know, we win with people, and we have some of the absolute best people from top to bottom. But I hope that we will continue to make you guys proud.
Robert, very quickly, a final thought before we wrap it up.
Actually, just one of the people, just because I know there's a lot of, you know, former alums on here that ran under Coach Kiesling. I know I speak for a lot of them in that, you know, our thoughts and prayers are to Coach Kiesling. He lost his wife last week, and I just want to make sure that everybody knew that. We're in the process of starting, you know, kind of an endowment, and I can't tell you how great it's been to have Coach Kiesling around. He's been incredibly supportive. I know there's some Greenville Track Club people here too, so that kind of extended family that we talk about with the running community here. It's a very sad time, but our thoughts and prayers are certainly with Coach Kiesling and the rest of his family.
Yeah, and I think that we would extend that from the entire athletic department as well. Listen, thank you both for just a very fun hour, and for allowing us to have a little fun with you here at the end with the newlywed game. Now, I'll let you guys, you know, what happens after this shuts down, we won't ask any questions. But
We're going to turn the camera off, honey.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you so much. We've really enjoyed it.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
All right, that's Robert and Rita Gary. Next week, it is women's soccer head coach Andrew Burr, and we'll close out the month of October with Doug Allison from the men's soccer program. This has been Lunch and Learn, brought to you by Sharon View Federal Credit Union. Our thanks to Ty Osborne, and on behalf of all of us here at the Furman Athletic Department, I'm Dan Scott. Say thank you for joining us. God bless you, and so long, everybody.